I recently revisited Aviassembly for the Update 5 release. Maybe the most requested feature since release, besides more content, has to be helicopters. After finishing the 4 included missions that directly requires you to use the helicopter, I'd like to share my initial impressions at least. Update 5 includes multiple new parts to make helicopters work, as well as 4 new missions. There is 2 new cockpits, 3 new engines, out of which 1 is mainly focused on building VTOL aircraft. That's right, VTOL is now a very much viable option in the game. The update enables you to build traditional helicopters, multi-rotor constructions, as well as vertical takeoff and landing capable aircrafts. Overall, I think helicopters is a predictable but great addition to the game. It's adding new layers to the game, arguably hitting both the community's request for more content as well as more build options. We will need to start a new game to access the new missions, just like last time when there was new areas added. Certainly wish the dev could find a workaround for this eventually. I didn't actually revisit the game for Update 4, so there simply wasn't very much content added at that point. However, the new UI instantly stood out as I launched the game. I think it's a clear improvement to the previous UI. Continuously working on UI and UX for new players is really important to keep the game feeling polished and fresh, especially for players that just recently found the game. After a short grind to access the snow biome, as well as unlock the necessary rotary parts, I set out to build my first helicopter. The building process is not very different. Something Aviassembly does really well is allowing you to build whatever you'd like. Let's take this bad boy out to the airfield. Yeah, I can't help but feel that the least fuel-heavy engine with a, to me, very small helicopter should be able to at least get off the runway before it runs out of gas, even without extra fuel tanks. Helicopters are extremely fuel-hungry. Without the option to generate any passive lift, you are consuming fuel both to propel yourself forward, as well as to generate lift. This means that helicopters are not really viable before you have unlocked at least Tier 2 fuel tanks. Without additional fuel tanks, you're counting flight times in seconds. My radio-controlled helicopter have larger range than that. Heck, I could probably throw a rubber duck longer than that. Not that I would ever mistreat a rubber duck like that, of course. The developer suggested that during testing he found helicopters and balloons to work really well together. While looking ridiculous, it does improve the fuel economy for sure. It adds that passive lift that you otherwise get for free with airplanes. With that said, things does improve once you get a bit further into the game. With 2 rotors and additional fuel tanks available, you can just barely build a flight-worthy helicopter. Doing a super quick playthrough, only focusing on unlocking the necessary parts and biomes, I did feel like building my first helicopter reset my performance back to what my first airplane was capable of. Your initial helicopter will be able to just barely hop from airport to airport, with low fuel warnings 95% of the time as you land, while also having extremely low lift capacity. The 4 included missions, however, does feel really good, and displays perfectly the potential of helicopters. Narrow landings and takeoffs are super fun and engaging to play around with. The rotor destruction mechanics that was added only kinda adds to this experience. Interestingly, I found myself struggling with the camera more than usual, as the game takes control of the camera when displaying different mission and story texts, while also auto-centering behind the aircraft. It also doesn't help that we still do not have a simulation around center of gravity, meaning that tail rotors remains not functioning at all for rotating your actual helicopter. You can get some extra rotation by adding a tail fin, but that feels more like a hack than anything else. It appears that you can deliver items by hovering over the new boats, but you're still required to actually land to finish the mission itself. The game removing camera control to provide you the flavor text of delivering items as you land is a bit jarring, however. I don't know if this delivery sequence was intended or something that just came from the already established game mechanics. I could see this as a prediction or a preparation for other missions where you would actively sling items under the helicopter. That would be awesome. It also feels realistic, as I imagine you would probably try to avoid landing on a boat unless absolutely necessary. Needless to say, the new missions are very fun and only possible to complete with a helicopter. The developer was also smart enough to include a fragile cargo mission to the boat. We'll get back to this a little later. Once you unlock the larger engines and have received a bit more money, things start to become a lot more interesting. The extra thrust is more or less a requirement. And then when you unlock the large helicopter cockpit, things start to really feel spacious compared to the footprint of the actual helicopter, which feels right. I even tried to do most of the missions with different configurations of helicopter parts. However, to get to the desert biome, we'll need to deliver a rock to a research base in the middle of the snow biome, meaning we'll need to lift it over the mountain peaks, which needs lifts that helicopters, even with 2 rotors, just doesn't have. This is 2 of the strongest rotors in the game, and I cannot lift off the ground with the helicopter with total weight of approximately 60 points and just barely hitting the 300 needed cargo space. During this attempt, I was trying to go the long way around over the water, but doesn't even have enough fuel for that. I've already learned that rotors break with environmental impact, but they do not actually break on impact with the aircraft itself, or other rotors for that part. So grinding up some more money for another engine and more fuel tanks just barely does the trick for the stone to be delivered at the research base. Now, as I mentioned, fragile cargo. I actually took the chance while I was trying to grind up some cash here and really focus on the fragile cargos, because it does feel really good to use your helicopter for that. It suits it really well with the soft landings. It's obviously an issue a little bit with the weight, but mostly the fragile cargo is not super heavy. You just need a lot of it. So if you're willing to do multiple trips, I think helicopters is a really good match for all of these fragile cargo missions that we do have. And that's the issue. The missions in the desert is just more of the same. There is no real fragile cargo at all over there. It's just more heavy stuff. And I don't think the heavy stuff is where the helicopters really shines. So I think they're making it a little bit of a disservice. Let's call it that. In the desert, we just do some small iterations to add more fuel, and the rest can be done with the 3-rotor setup we already have. As mentioned, I think helicopters is a really good improvement to the game. There is some balancing issues, and the content available for helicopters seems very limited at the moment. You won't be using helicopters to finish the base game, for example. I would like to see them add more helicopter landing spots to the main islands, where you need to actually land with precision. Would be great for the future. But what do you think of Update 5? Sound off in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button on your way out, and until next time, bye bye.